I just stumbled onto a midnight secret that could change Cardano forever. And no, I don't mean I stayed up too late. I mean midnight, a project so bold even Charles Hoskinson is betting the house on it. Are you curious? You should be, because what I found might just flip Cardano on its head. So get this, I'm sipping my late night coffee, scrolling through the crypto Discord, you know, our free educational one that we run. The link, by the way, is in the description if you haven't already joined. And I see someone post Hoskinson says Midnight's token will dwarf all of Cardano. So my first reaction is, wait, what? Dwarf Cardano? Right? Yeah, in that order. Those are fighting words, Charles Hoskinson, right? The founder of Cardano himself basically hinted that the upcoming token called Knight might just become the biggest thing on Cardano. I mean, I nearly spit take my coffee here. I mean, I've been jaded by crypto hype before, but coming from Hoskinson, this got my attention real quick. So I had so many questions. What the heck is Midnight? Why would this token eclipse everything else? Is this just Charles being overly optimistic again? Or is this something real here, right? There was only one way to find out. I dove headfirst into the Midnight rabbit hole, and let me tell you something. It's one wild story, right? Stick around, because by the end of this, you might actually be as astonished as I was, and you might even discover you're eligible for some free crypto without even knowing it. All right, let's start from the beginning. Charles Hoskinson, if you've clicked on this, you probably know his name, right? The co-founder of Ethereum way back in the day, and the big brain behind Cardano. Now, he's not exactly a shy guy about his bold visions, right? But when he goes on a live stream and says something is going to take Cardano to the next level, I obviously pay attention. Now, the project he's hyping up is called Midnight, and ironically, I first heard about it, you know, at noon, totally ruining the kind of mystique here. No, I know, right? So what is Midnight, you're thinking? Well, in simple terms, it's a new privacy-focused blockchain in the Cardano ecosystem. Now, privacy blockchain might sound like an kind of, you know, oxymoron, right? After all, blockchains are usually like glass houses, you know, where everyone can see every transaction. Midnight is more like a house with curtains, right? It uses fancy cryptography, think zero-knowledge proofs and selective disclosure to let you control who can see your data. In non-geek speak, you get privacy and you get to stay compliant, right? So imagine doing a transaction where you decide you want to keep private and you want to reveal. It's kind of like sharing your social media posts with close friends only, right? You're still posting on a platform, but not everyone gets to see your embarrassing karaoke night. That's what Midnight aims to do for crypto transactions. It's pretty cool, right? Now, Cardano has been sometimes criticized for moving slowly, being too academic, or missing that killer app. Now, Hoskinson out here saying that Midnight could actually be the game changer. Now, during the live stream, he literally kind of projected that Midnight's token, called Knight, you know, will become the largest, most prominent, most traded, and highest volume Cardano native token in circulation. So let that sink in, right? The highest volume token on Cardano's network, potentially even more traded than ADA itself. So when I read that quote, I kind of had to pinch myself. Usually you'd think Cardano's top token is ADA, hands down, or maybe some kind of stablecoin or popular meme token on Cardano. But Hoskinson is basically saying, nah, ADA's cool, but wait until Knight drops. It's gonna overshadow everything. Now, that's a pretty bold claim, even borderline crazy, or is it, right? This is kind of where my skeptic side kicked in. I thought, hold on here, Charles, right? Are we just hyping up our own project just a little bit too much? I mean, I'm bullish on Cardano and Midnight's ideas, but I wasn't born yesterday either. We've all heard grand promises in crypto, right? Only to see projects fizzle out. So I decided to dig deeper and verify if there's actually substance behind all of the swagger. Now, the first stop on my Midnight journey, understanding the Knight token and this massive airdrop that everyone is buzzing about. Because if people all over crypto are suddenly talking about Midnight, there's usually free crypto and free money involved. Tell me I'm wrong, right? Sure enough, Midnight's team is setting something, I guess whimsically named as the Glacier Drop. It sounds cool, literally, right? Which it is, right? It's an airdrop claim portal that went live a few days ago. And here is the kicker. They're not just airdropping to Cardano people. They're basically doing the Opera thing, right? Across 8 different blockchains, right? You get some nights and you get some night and maybe everyone gets night. Okay, not literally everyone, but there is a criteria here. But the range is crazy broad, right? If you're holding at least $100 of worth of Bitcoin, Ethereum's Cardano, of course, Solana, BNB, the Brave browser BAT token, XRP's Ledger's XRP token, or even Avalanche here, as of kind of mid-June, you're actually probably on the eligibility list. And yeah, you heard that right? Even Bitcoin Maxis and XRP Army are included here. That's kind of like a cross-chain peace treaty, or maybe a clever kind of Trojan horse. Now, Midnight is basically sneaking into other communities by giving them free tokens. And I've got to say, that's a genius piece of marketing, right? It's hard to hate on Cardano if one day you wake up and you find out, oh, they're giving me free value just because I hold my favorite coin. It's kind of like a surprise party where Cardano shows up with gifts for everyone at someone else's birthday party. Sneaky, but also rather smart. Now, at this point, I'm intrigued. I'm checking my own wallets like, did I have any of these coins on June 11th? June 11th, 2025 was the magic snapshot day for eligibility, by the way. Now, I'll be honest, I had some dust in a few of those wallets, but not sure if it kind of crosses the $100 threshold. Fingers crossed, right? So what's the scale of this airdrop then? Well, Knight has a fixed supply of 24 billion tokens, and get this, 100% of that is being distributed to the community across those chains. And the Midnight white paper basically said the team or insiders aren't hoarding a secret stash. They're literally giving it all out. That's both admirable and a little bit scary. Admirable because it's super community orientated, like decentralized Max. But scary because, well, if you give everything away, you better hope that the community values it and the token finds purpose in the wild, right? Otherwise, it could be complete and utter chaos. Usually projects reserve tokens for the team or foundation to kind of fund development, etc. But Midnight presumably has some separate funding, or the company is involved, but the token distribution is kind of all for the users. So my investigative kind of brain at this point is like, is there a catch? It's got to be a catch, right? But how do they actually make this thing, make sure that this thing doesn't turn into a pump and dump? We're going to get to that bit in a bit, right? Because as a spoiler, there are vast mechanics to prevent immediate dumping. So I'm on this Glacier Drop portal and I see the live stats ticking. Within the first couple of days, over 23,000 people have already jumped in and claimed their Knight tokens. 23,000 might not sound like a huge amount in crypto airdrop terms, but hold on, those 23,000 wallets collectively scooped up 470 million Knight tokens. 470 million out of 24 billion total. That's not a bad start for just a few days, but here is a wild part. The eligible wallets across all of those chains number in the tens of millions. Roughly 34 million wallets could claim these tokens. Now that blew my mind, but let's think about it, right? 34 million wallets, potentially a thing, right? Or this thing, or potential of this thing. Even if many are dormant or people completely ignore it, that's still tens of millions, right? It's tons of people with a foot in the door of Cardano's ecosystem all of a sudden. It's kind of like Cardano just said, hey world, have a sample of what we're cooking. Come on over anytime. Right? If even a fraction of those people actually show up, right, claim and, take interest in Midnight or Cardano, that's a massive influx of attention. But Here is where the plot thickens. I noticed something odd. The number of claims were actually way lower than I'd expect, given how many people are actually eligible. 23,000 out of 34 million. That's not even like 0.1% uptake. So I was scratching my head, thinking, are people just not interested? Did they not know? Well, it turns out that many did not know, or did know, but they just didn't actually claim. And not for the lack of trying, of course. The culprit was hardware wallets, yeah. Our beloved Ledger and Trezor devices, the ones that we use to stay safe, right? They're actually having some issues with the claiming process. It's tiny and a little bit ironic at the same time, right? The most security conscious holders are probably the ones with the larger bags were temporarily locked out of their free midnight tokens because of a tech glitch. Now I hopped onto Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it, right? I'm never going to call it X, let's face it, and saw some rather frustrated post, right? Saying that my ledger won't connect to claim night. What the... You can fill in the blank. It's almost poetic, right? Midnight is about privacy and security, and the only people who couldn't actually get in on day one were the ones using extra security, myself included. I haven't done it yet, right? You can't even make this stuff up, right? The Midnight team acknowledged the hiccup and they're working on a fix pronto, right? They've got until October 4th, 2025, and that's kind of when the Glacier Drop claim window actually closes. So we've got time to get everyone through the door. So if you haven't checked yet, you had any of these issues or these coins that I've mentioned, you can go through the official Midnight Glacier Drop site. Be super careful with the URLs because there are going to be some scammers out there that are going to try to trick you. Always go through the official channels, check the URLs, don't click on a scammer one and hook up your wallets. That will be a disaster. You will lose everything. Be super careful. You can join us in the Discord if you want the actual URL. Anyway, the claim process, from what I gather, is non-custodial and pretty smooth. That's what I've heard from other people. So if you're on a ledger like me, users, you're going to get stuck. So hang tight. Help, of course, is on the way. It would stink to miss out, but just because of a wallet compatibility issue. So just brace yourself for the fix. Now, let's talk about why Hoskinson and others think that Midnight and Night tokens could actually be such a big deal for Cardano. Now, it's not just about, handing out free tokens like candy. There's actually a strategic method to this madness. Now, Cardano, as many of you know, has been building steadily, but sometimes struggled to get the spotlight in a crypto world full of Ethereums and Solanas and whatnots, right? But what's better way to kind of turn heads than a project that intersects with 8 different crypto communities all at once? If a Bitcoiner or an Ethereum, suddenly holds a Cardano native token Night because of an airdrop, well, this they might actually become curious, right? And think to themselves, what is this Midnight thing? Why is Cardano doing privacy? Should I check out Cardano's tech? It's an invitation at the end of the day, right? It's not like Midnight is a random sideshow. It's built on Cardano. Hoskinson emphasized that Midnight will live on the platform and help build the Cardano ecosystem itself. Now that means all the activity, every Midnight transaction, every dApp that might use Midnight ultimately involves Cardano's base infrastructure. So if Midnight draws in users, Cardano benefits from the traffic and hopefully the fees, the growth, etc. It's kind of like if someone built a killer app on the iPhone. Apple doesn't mind if the app has its own brand, as long as it kind of sells more iPhones, right? And here, Cardano is the iPhone, and Midnight is going to be, or could be, the killer app or feature that finally makes people say, hey, I need to get on Cardano. So to gauge how legit this is, I looked at who's actually backing it, right? Or backing Midnight. Now, Hoskinson isn't doing all of this alone in a garage. He's got a whole team and apparently over 100 companies and ventures partnering on this project. Now, he revealed that bit in an interview, and it kind of made my eyes widen. 100 partners. That's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. But it also means that they have institutional interest and likely some serious use cases in mind. Now, usually big players, they don't get excited about a new blockchain unless it promises something novel. Now, in Midnight's case, that novelty is privacy with compliance. So think about industries like healthcare, finance, or enterprise data. They need privacy, but they also need auditability. A chain that can give you selective privacy backed by security of Cardano might actually appeal to them. Now, if some of those 100 partners are potential enterprise users or dApp developers, we could actually see a robust ecosystem blooming when Midnight actually launches. And more importantly, for ADA holders, if those use cases require ADA or bring transactions to Cardano, it's a win for the whole community. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. All right, this sounds rosy, but show me the money. What happens when Knight actually trades? Is the token going to moon? Or is it just going to be another airdrop dump? Now, trust me, I asked that too. As a kind of storyteller, I'm hyped, but as an investor, I'm also cautious, right? So let's break it down, right? Knight's value proposition isn't explicitly in the article that I'm referencing today, but what we can infer is a few things. One, volume and liquidity, right? If indeed Knight becomes the most traded token on Cardano, that implies that there's a lot of interest, speculation, usage, or even both. High volume could be partly driven by the fact that everyone who missed the initial distribution might want to buy on in, or those who got it might actually want to trade it. It could actually become listed on exchanges, possibly even big ones if there is interest there. Side note though, if you're looking for a place to trade tokens like ADA or potentially Knight in the future, Kraken Pro is one exchange that I personally use. I've got an affiliate link that's in the description for Kraken Pro. If you use it, it helps the channel out here, so thank you in advance. Of course, you use whatever exchange you trust. Just make sure that it's reputable and secure. Now, the second thing here is that the token isn't immediately dumpable. Very important detail, right? The Midnight team designed the distribution with some time locks. So even after you claim your Knight, you can't just go and sell it the very next day, right? They've said that the token will remain locked until Midnight's mainnet goes live. And then, even then, right, they'll unlock gradually over about a year in random thaw events. That was THAW, hence the Glacier term here as well. Now, they think of it like vesting periods or token lockups that we see in other projects, but in a fair way since everyone's on equal footing. Now, this essentially is meant to smooth out the supply and prevent a sudden flood of tokens on the market. Now, in theory, it helps avoid the classic airdrop dump, where prices tank immediately. Now, it also encourages longer-term engagement. If you hold, you eventually get all of your tokens unlocked, and presumably there might even be governance or utility that makes it worth holding on to. Now, it's a clever mechanism, almost like they expect that if people stick around for those unlocks, they might actually use the network or become a part of the community rather than just sell and leave. Now, all of these measures, they show me that Midnight's team is aware of all of the pitfalls that have plagued other projects. They're trying to do this differently. Will it work? Well, we're going to see. But I appreciate that this is not just a pump and dump free for all, but it's actually more structured. Now, at this point in my research, I had gone from skeptical to cautiously optimistic. The strategy kind of makes sense on paper. Attract a diverse user base, show off Cardano's tech under pressure, and solve some real need privacy. However, I also have to play devil's advocate. What if it doesn't pan out? What if people claim the tokens and forget about Midnight? What if the mainnet launch keeps getting delayed? As of now, we haven't actually been given an official launch date, which is typical Cardano style, right? They like to take their time and do things right, which is good, but can kind of be the, anticlimactic for the hype cycle. Also, can Cardano's base layer handle a surge in transactions, say millions of people try to use Midnight features or trade Knight all at once? Now, Hoskinson is very confident in Cardano's scalability, especially after recent updates. Still, the real world can surprise you. Ethereum's thought, CryptoKitties was harmless until it clogged the network in 2017. But then again, it is Ethereum. Solana has its fair share of issues and keeping the lights on seems to be one of them. So Cardano hasn't really been battle tested in the same way maybe as some of these others with that kind of level of demand just yet. Midnight could be that big test. So at this stage, I realized something, right? Whether Midnight soars or falters, it's going to be one heck of a ride. Now, I'm not one to kind of turn down a front row seat to a crypto roller coaster, but, and this is a big but, right? I need to level with you, right? When we start talking about potential token kind of popularity, trading volumes, maybe even price down the line, it's easy to get stars in our eyes. So let me drop the necessary reality check right here for both of our sakes. And now this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, we're feeling grounded again? Good, I know. It was a bit of a mouthful, but it was important. This midnight stuff is rather exciting, but it's not a promise of Lambos or moons. It's an experiment, albeit a rather bold one. Now, let's get back into it. After digesting all of this information, I took a step back to see the bigger picture. Cardano has been on this long journey, kind of like a tortoise in the tortoise versus the hare race of blockchains. Slow and steady, lots of research, sometimes late to the party. Smart contracts, they took a while, for instance, right? But Midnight feels like an attempt to kind of leap forward in a rather big way, especially in an area, privacy, that mainstream chains haven't solved well, right? For sure, we've seen Monero, Zcash for privacy, but they are separate ecosystems and often face regulatory pushbacks, right? Ethereum's working on layer 2 solutions and zero knowledge rollups for privacy, but that is rather complex and going to be prone to a lot of hacks and errors in my humble opinion. So if Cardano can integrate something like Midnight natively as a sidechain and make it easy for users, well, that could actually attract a niche of people who need that feature. There's also a community aspect here that I find quite fascinating. By roping in people from multiple different blockchains via the airdrop, Midnight sort of is blurring the tribal lines of crypto. Like, I have a buddy who's a hardcore XRP Ledger fan, right? Lives and breathes XRP. Now, he couldn't care less about Cardano normally. Well, guess what? He got an airdrop allocation for Night because he has XRP, or had it in June anyway, right? He messages me like, dude, why am I getting something from Cardano? And what even is this Midnight thing? Next thing you know, I'm explaining Cardano to an XRP guy, and he's actually listening to me, right? Because he's got a stake, even if it is small, in it, right? Multiply that by potentially millions of people across other communities, right? Even if most people kind of just cash out and, cash out of the token eventually, the percentage will be, curious and of course stick around to see what actually Midnight is all about, right? It's a kind of clever way of growing a Cardano family, kind of like inviting all of your neighbors to a house party. Sure, some will leave after grabbing a free drink, but some might stay because, hey, the music's good and the company is interesting. Let's not forget to talk about, I should say, the excitement inside the Cardano community itself. For us ADA holders and Cardano followers, Midnight is kind of like the new shiny toy that we've been hearing about for almost 3 years, since late 2022, but haven't really gotten to play with it just yet. Now, the devs have been heads down building it. Charles Hoskinson himself has been teasing it, and because he's so closely tied to it, a lot of us have high hopes. There's also a feeling of, finally, something big that is ours. Now, if you've been around, you know that Cardano has had a bit of an underdog journey, right? We don't have as many flashy DeFi apps as Ethereum or the NFT volume of Solana, though Cardano NFTs, they are a thing. So Midnight presents this opportunity. Maybe Cardano can lead in privacy where others simply failed or haven't. And maybe the narrative shifts from Cardano is slow to Cardano is doing something innovative that others cannot or aren't. For a narrative shift, something, sometimes all it takes is one kind of big flagship success. Now, I am claiming here that Midnight, will be the guaranteed success. No, I can't do that, right? There are plenty of things that I need to do and to go right? Or that we need to go right. They need to launch the mainnet smoothly, and a lot of software engineers and security audit boxes need to check off. Now, they need to demonstrate that using Midnight is actually useful, like what dApps will run on Midnight. Will there be any killer use cases, and maybe private smart contracts for enterprises, right? They have these 100 partnerships, right? But we haven't seen publicly what many of them actually are, right? It could be anything from identity management to supply chain to secret DeFi apps. The success of the token long term will depend on real demand from whatever Midnight provides, not just as flashy distribution. However, even before all of that, one thing is nearly certain, right? And that's the moment that Night is tradable, it's going to be an absolute roller coaster. Why? Because a huge number of people are getting it for free, and another huge set of people missed the snapshot and might want in, or speculators who want a piece of the action, that is. That's a recipe for volatility. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the price spikes early from FOMO and then does the usual dump when people kind of take some profits. But remember, the vesting. Only a portion of those tokens will be liquid at first. Now, that could either make the initial circulating supply low, pushing the price up due to scarcity, or dampen trading if people can't get their full tokens immediately. It's hard to predict. Now, what I'm pretty sure about is the volume will be pretty insane relative to other Cardano tokens. Even if many just trade small amounts, having participants from 8 different ecosystems is going to generate activity. Now, Hoskinson's bet is that the volume and the attention will prove Cardano's robustness. Just imagine headlines: Cardano handles record traffic amid Midnight token frenzy. No outages. Now, that would be a big win for them, showcasing the kind of scalability that we've been building. Conversely, of course, if things do slow down or clog up, haters will have a field day. The stakes are high, at least in that sense. Now, throughout this whole research adventure, I kept feeling like I was on a bit of a personal mission here, right? It started with curiosity. Could this be real, or is it all just hype? Then it became almost a treasure hunt, right? Checking eligibility, watching claim numbers rise. Then a strategy game, where why are they doing this? What's the end game? And finally, a story of community and technology pushing boundaries. Honestly, this was kind of why I love crypto, right? It's never just about lines of code or coins in a vacuum. It's about people trying new ideas, sometimes crazy ones too. It's see how we might actually change the world of finance and the technology. Cardano's Midnight is exactly that kind of crazy idea that just might work. It's blending privacy, often kind of associated with kind of secrecy and darknets, with openness and community distribution. It's kind of like mixing oil and water and hoping for a new salad dressing of some kind. Odd combo, I know, but if it kind of emulsifies, you've got something rather special. Now, as we kind of wind down this Midnight escapade, let me share my personal takeaway. Right, I went from Midnight, what's that, to Midnight might just be Cardano's secret weapon. I learned that sometimes a project can be much bigger than it actually appears. Midnight isn't just another token launch, it's a statement after all. And if Cardano's saying, we're here, we're innovative, and we're not playing by the old rules, maybe it succeeds wildly, maybe it faces hurdles, likely to be both at times, but it reminded me not to underestimate something just because it sounds hyped. Do your own homework, which I did today, and you might actually see that there's method to this madness. Now, I'm personally going to be keeping a close eye on how many people claim their night tokens, especially once the Ledger and Trezor fix comes out. I bet the numbers will jump. I'm going to be lurking in our Discord and forums to see what the community plans to do with their tokens. Are they going to hold? Are they going to trade them? Are they going to use them? If there are any apps, of course. And of course, I'm eagerly awaiting that mainnet launch announcement. It's kind of like we've been invited to a huge event, but the date isn't set just yet. The invitations, the tokens are sent, the buzz is building, and now we just need the venue doors to open. So, in conclusion, Midnight Story is still being written, right? We're early characters in it, whether you claimed night or just learned about it. It's something worth paying attention to if you're new to Cardano or into Cardano or even crypto innovation in general. At the very least, it's a big, bold experiment in how to launch a blockchain project differently. And if it works, it could push Cardano into a new era where it's not just the slow and steady chain, but one that pulled off a massive cross-chain coup and delivered something unique in the crypto space. It is, at least if it all fails, well, we've learned an awful lot, and I'm sure that there's going to be another chapter. There always is in crypto. For me, this whole deep dive was a bit of a blast. It felt like I was doing a little crypto adventure, and I'm glad that I could share it with you guys in story form. Now, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Did you get any kind of midnight tokens? Were you eligible on any chain? And have you claimed yet? Or are you just watching from the sidelines to see how all of this unfolds? You can let me know in the comments down below. I'm super curious, what the community sentiment actually is for this one. And hey, if you have any kind of wild theories about Midnight, then I'm all ears too. Now, if you've enjoyed coming along on this Midnight adventure with me, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and why don't you check out the video that's queuing up on the screen just over there. And I'm going to catch you all in the next one.